Okay, so before this video starts, I just want to say, one, sorry about the weird microphone audio quality. It took a long time to get this all done. I was kind of in a rush and I really wanted to get this video out. So I'm not going to fully re-record all the audio. But also, this video keeps getting blocked by Sony no matter how many changes I do, no matter how fair use the content itself is. So I have to change some things. I've just fully removed some clips and put some text over it explaining the situation. But the clips that I've removed, I've made sure any context that is needed to understand my point is still there. Anything that is just B-roll or filler is completely gone, replaced with text. Sorry that you have to watch the video in this state, but Sony sucks. Fuck Sony. With Spider-Man movie re-releases happening all around the world, there's been a lot of recency bias going around. So let me get my thoughts straight on all of the Spider-Man movies that were re-released. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I religiously watch all of these movies, but I do rewatch them frequently. Yet, I was not as much of a fan of comic book media discussion on the internet last time, so now it's my turn to throw my hat into the ring officially. Let me say right now, I have not read every single Spider-Man comic ever. This video is going to begin a series where I rewatch every single Spider-Man movie myself and tell you, the viewer, why recency bias leads to the most unnecessary and incorrect opinions and discussions on the internet. Starting with the most divisive one, The Amazing Spider-Man. Well, the most divisive one is The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but we have to start with the first one, so we're going to see just how bad the second one is. Now, this movie is overhated in some regards, but recently, it's become a bit overrated in many other regards. Just because the creative team behind Spider-Man No Way Home did an incredible job of working with Andrew Garfield to redeem his character does not mean that his character was perfect. He can't have been redeemed if he didn't have something to be redeemed over. That something is these movies. Some people have complained about Peter's characterization in the beginning of this movie, but I would honestly disagree. Something that will be a recurring topic in this video is the idea of Peter's lesson. Peter Parker's origin story is incredibly important. If it changes, that can be fine. But it kind of has to hit a couple important beats at some point in the origin story. I'm going to distill Peter Parker's origin down to its key moments and details for you, and then tell you how and why The Amazing Spider-Man fails to hit these same important points, permanently messing up Andrew's character for the entire duology. Peter's normal story arc goes like this. Peter accidentally gets bitten by a spider that has been experimented on previously. He develops superpowers based on the abilities of said spider. He decides to use his newfound powers for his own gain. He gets screwed out of reward for the use of his powers. He gets back at the person who screwed him over by actively letting a criminal go when, and this is the important part, remember this, he could have stopped the criminal. The criminal then goes on to kill Uncle Ben as he escapes. Peter learns of Uncle Ben's death. He finds out the guy that killed Uncle Ben is somewhere in the world and hunts him down. He beats him up and is about to kill him. He learns that it's the guy who he let escape before. He learns that his actions have consequences and realizes now that, say it with me, with great power there must also come great responsibility. Those 9 words mean something. That is the lesson. It's not just a quote that defines itself. Peter has to make the definition himself. He learns in this moment when he stops but doesn't kill the criminal that killed Uncle Ben. Peter learns that anybody could have their own Uncle Ben, or their own Peter, or their own Aunt May. Peter vows that as long as he has these powers, he will do everything in his power to save as many people as possible. Nobody will ever die due to his own actions ever again. Now, we're going to do the typical comic book YouTuber recap of The Amazing Spider-Man, and we're going to spot the moment where Peter learns the lesson that leads to him becoming Spider-Man. Not just a guy in a costume chasing down criminals, but actually he becomes Spider-Man. Then we'll figure out what the lesson was that he learned and how we got there, and why I think it does not work for a Spider-Man story. The movie opens with Peter's parents leaving him with Aunt May and Uncle Ben. The first 40 minutes or so are dedicated solely to introducing Peter and leading up to Uncle Ben's death. They really take their time, which is why it's so disappointing. First of all, he doesn't wear glasses at all, which I find that to be a big problem. He's too fucking handsome. People have said this. I think the costuming team thought that he'd look ugly with glasses, which is not true. But if it was true, that's the point. Peter's supposed to be a dorky, low-key kind of ugly in his lack of confidence guy. Nobody is saying when they complain about Andrew Garfield being too handsome that Peter Parker is an ugly guy. Peter Parker, by all definitions, is relatively attractive across his entire, like, from the moment we meet him in the comics, like the first ever comic, to now. He just maintains the same attractiveness. But the problem is that he does the Clark Kent, right? Clark Kent's a hot guy, but he like slouches, wears glasses that are kind of crooked all the time. His hair's a mess. But when he gets bitten by a spider and gets his powers, he becomes confident and finally becomes attractive. But in this movie, he not only skates around the hallways, but he skates around the hallways after getting told not to by an authority figure. Peter would never get in trouble for doing something and then continue doing it in front of them. That is not Peter Parker, especially pre-bite. The worst part is that this is a pre-bite Peter Parker who disobeys direct authority rules after getting asked out by a girl, by a cheerleader. Are you kidding me? Peter then proceeds to defend a kid who's getting bullied, which I do believe that Peter Parker would do at some point, leading to him getting punched once before Gwen runs in and calls Flash off. In this movie, I do want to say I kind of like the idea that they play into Flash and Peter knowing each other. They hint that they were probably friends at some point. They seem pretty close to each other when Flash isn't being a dick, which only happens like twice, by the way. Peter goes to class, flirts with Gwen a bit before going home and helping his uncle with a burst water pipe in the basement. By the way, in this scene, he says he's going to go to the hardware store tomorrow, but I don't think he does, and he doesn't get in trouble for it. But he does get told off for not doing things he said he would do almost every other time. I guess the pipe just magically fixed itself because Peter finds his dad's old briefcase and the room goes silent. Like he walked up with his dad's severed head. Like, I get that Pete's dad was a secretive man, according to Uncle Ben, but like, it's a briefcase. The contents of this briefcase are very important to something else I really want to say, and this time, it's in the movie's favor. In the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, they say that Peter's dad was always working on this formula for super high tensile adhesive lines or ropes or whatever. Basically, Peter's dad was a scientist who was working on making the webs that Spider-Man would end up using. After he dies and Peter gets bitten, Peter goes, finishes his dad's formula, and uses the result in his web shooters. In the movie, it's pretty similar. His dad worked for Oscorp and made the genetically modified spiders that were designed to produce his biocable. That's what it's called. They make it naturally, and then they just harvest it from the spiders. It's later revealed, if I remember correctly, that Peter's dad was also trying to work on making the spiders able to pass on their powers to individuals or something, maybe. He and Dr. Connors were working on cross-species genetics together. At some point, Peter's dad was asked to do something that he believed to be unethical with the research that he was doing, so he refused, stole his research. Eventually, someone broke into his house to look for it, leading to the events at the beginning of the movie. And honestly, I really like this. It adds a little bit more context to Peter losing his parents, which gives a lot more reasoning to the trauma that he displays in this movie for it. There's nothing inherently wrong with focusing on Peter's relationship with his parents who left and died. But I think a lot of people have the problem that stems from the next movie, which we'll get to later on. I do like that this movie's taking clear inspiration from Ultimate Spider-Man, and I think because of that, I have to say, I don't mind this Peter Parker being kind of an asshole. He can be a bit much a lot of the time, but I get it. Ultimate Spider-Man Peter is basically a dick for the entire comic run until he dies. And even afterwards, he's a bit of a fucking prick. Although I would prefer if Peter wasn't like that. I'm fine with it because it takes inspiration from a relatively really good comic run. Peter sneaks into Oscorp to talk to Dr. Connors about his dad by stealing this guy's badge. The guy gets kicked out, which also should have led to Peter getting kicked out for obviously stealing his fucking badge. But whatever. Peter Parker is a selfish kid and doesn't have his powers yet. So he can't just climb in through a janitor closet's window on the 50th floor like he would in the comics, right? So whatever, we're gonna move on. When he gets there, he meets Gwen and flirts with her for a bit. Again, it's fine. He's just flirting with his crush. He eventually does sneak off to go try and talk to Dr. Connors before bumping into this guy, who has files with the same symbol as his dad's research documents. So instead, Pete follows that guy into a secret room full of spiders. Accident gets bitten by one, then gets kicked out by Gwen for sneaking off and almost getting her in trouble, since her job is to watch him and the group of people that he snuck in with. Peter goes home and takes the train. He gets this scene. I don't like the random cuts to black before one or two of the hits. It really does feel like an editing error. I don't think it's intentional. But whatever, I'm not the editor. Or editors. There's so many fucking editors in this movie. But it's a fun scene where he's accidentally fighting people with his spider sense. He also rips off this girl's shirt, which feels a bit unnecessary, but whatever. Boobs make money. Next, he raids his aunt and uncle's fridge, and they kind of just look at him and are surprised at him eating so much. Then it cuts to the next morning where Peter just absolutely destroys his bathroom by accident with his powers. It's also kind of a cute scene. Then Peter does this. I get that they don't want to do the thing in the comics where they make Flash punch Peter and accidentally break his hand. But this entire situation is so bad and out of character for everyone and doesn't work. Peter wouldn't do this. But maybe this Peter would. He's very lax with his powers in these movies and should definitely get caught being Spider-Man at several points in this movie. It's actually kind of insane. Also, Uncle Ben is too mad. Flash wasn't hurt. He was humiliated. Get the fuck over yourself, Uncle Ben. Jesus Christ. Stop fucking flirting, you two. Oh my god, get a room. Uncle Ben tells Peter to pick up Aunt May and walk her home from work or something. So Peter leaves school and goes to an old shipyard and has a cute scene where he figures out his powers, and it's pretty cool. Another cute scene. Peter at some point also talked to Dr. Connors privately and started helping him on his lizard serum at some period before this moment. So after the shipyard scene, he goes back to Dr. Connors to help finish the lizard serum before going home. He meets Uncle Ben outside at home and gets yelled at for forgetting to walk Aunt May back, which makes sense. He yells at Peter for a while, even though Aunt May doesn't care. Uncle Ben doesn't say the 9 words exactly, which is weird because Peter says them at the end of No Way Home. Also, No Way Home does make less sense with the context of this movie. We'll get to all that in a minute. Peter yells at Uncle Ben for referring to his dad and storms out, breaking the front door in the process, which is kind of funny. Uncle Ben chases him for what feels like it's miles. They're in a commercial area now and not their neighborhood residential area. I don't know. Then this happens. Peter goes to try and buy some chocolate milk because he is a man of good taste. He is a penny short and this guy is just being a dick about it. So Peter leaves. The guy behind him steals money from the register and gives Peter the milk because Peter just decided to stand there and watch this guy rob the place. Peter leaves out this right side door. The guy runs out this left side door. By the time the guy is across the street and heading over to where Uncle Ben is, I guess, Peter's out to the right of the door and is not crossing the street yet. The clerk runs out of the other door, the left door, and tells Peter to chase the guy down. And that's not his job. Call the cops. Peter then says no, because obviously the guy is so far away by the time that Peter is told to do something. What the fuck is he gonna do? Anyways, the guy runs down the sidewalk and falls in front of Uncle Ben, dropping a fucking gun. Uncle Ben jumps for the gun and gets shot in the struggle, dying on the sidewalk where Peter finds him. Peter sees the description of the guy who shot Uncle Ben when the cops come to Aunt May in his home, and he sees that it's the same guy who stole from the store. So he goes to hunt him down. He first beats up this guy who fits the description and appears to be assaulting this woman, which he is, but I think she's his girlfriend or something. Then Peter's chased by the guy and his friends until he learns that the guy who was beating his girlfriend isn't the killer, and he just lets him go before falling into an old wrestling arena, while some guy behind him yells about having seen his face. So Peter takes one of the wrestlers' costume designs that he sees on the walls and takes it to disguise himself so he can't be punished for assaulting people in the night. That's annoying. Peter continues doing this for a while and eventually decides to get a spandex suit to help with his mobility. The final suit doesn't really look like spandex at all, but I kind of like the texture. I do hate the suit though. It looks pure evil. It doesn't even look that homemade aside from the sunglass lenses and the wristwatch being web shooters. Also, the montage of it making the web shooters is cute. Another cute scene, although I don't know where he gets the web pellets from. They're in the spider layer at Oscorp, so either Peter has access to it now thanks to Dr. Connors, which I don't think makes sense, or they didn't change any security for the room after it was broken into, or Peter just snagged a bunch of the pellets when he was there the first time for some reason. Either way, I don't know how he got these unless he somehow made it himself, even though it's shown to be only made by the spiders and collected at Oscorp. Anyways, he's officially in costume and stops this car thief. I actually, upon rewatch, I kind of fuck with Spider-Man. He quips a lot in the scene while doing stuff. An important part of Spidey's quips is to serve the purpose of distracting his enemies and baiting them into giving him information, but also Peter has to actively be doing stuff to stop the criminals while quipping. This is an important thing to keep in mind for the next video. Anyways, he gets chased by the cops here, does some kind of funny quips, gets away. The cops did shoot at him first, so I understand him yelling and being rude to them. He gets home and Aunt May is worried sick. They bicker a little bit before Aunt May reveals that she can't sleep while he's out late all the time. That doesn't come back. Also, he forgot to get the eggs she needed. God fucking damn it, Peter. Pete goes to Gwen's house for dinner and argues with her dad about Spider-Man before going outside and revealing his identity to Gwen almost immediately upon having the identity. Then the lizard strikes for the first time at the bridge. Peter shows up and fights him for a bit before having to stop and save a kid in a car that's hanging off the edge. It's a really cool scene. Obviously, the movie keeps looking for ways to make Peter take off his mask, because for some reason movies are convinced that a character in a mask is the worst thing possible. I think it's very well done in this scene. He saves the kid and realizes that he can help other families not have to deal with loss the same way he did. Eventually, he decides that it's his responsibility to stop the lizard and drops the hunt for Uncle Ben's killer. Finally, Peter starts accepting his responsibility and becoming— oh god damn it, Pete, stop fucking your girlfriend on camera. Jesus. Hey, I think Peter Parker is Spider-Man, guys. Yeah, how the fuck did he do that? Peter set the trap for the lizard, and it's honestly pretty cool. Before he's attacked by the lizard and gets away through a water pipe, leaving his camera in the lizard's lair with his name on it in giant bold letters. Pete, dude, you gotta sort yourself out. This is horrible. The lizard attacks Peter's high school, and it's actually not that bad of a fight. I kind of enjoyed it a bit. Really quick, I have to say, everybody said it, but I just wrote it there. The lizard is so fucking ugly in this movie. I can't understand why they made his face like this. Just give him a fucking iguana mouth like everybody else. The lizard escapes to high school, and Peter tells Gwen to go to Oscorp to make an antidote to the lizard serum, which she does, while Peter hunts him down. Then it's revealed that the lizard is going to Oscorp, so Peter immediately calls Gwen and tells her to stop making the antidote and to leave, but she doesn't. The lizard gets his little tube thing that's gonna fire a giant cloud of lizards from all over New York City, turning everybody into giant lizard people. Whatever. I don't care. It's a stupid plot point. But it doesn't matter because Spider-Man stops him. And he gets arrested. So he doesn't die, which, whatever. And he gets cured of being the lizard. So how, in no way, whatever. Sandman is honestly worse, so I guess we'll talk about it more in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3 video. Gwen's dad dies in the process of stopping the lizard. His last wishes are for Peter to stop making out with Gwen all the fucking time. Finally, let's fucking go. Wait, Aunt May, wait. No, don't tell him to keep dating her. Wait, Peter, no, don't flirt with Gwen in class, Peter. No, Peter, no. Anyways, let's recap the entire arc of Peter learning the lesson. And let's also figure out what that lesson was. Okay, here we go. It starts pretty well with Peter accidentally getting bit by a spider that had been experimented on previously. He develops superpowers based on the abilities of said spider. Then he decides to use his newfound powers for his own gain in a way. He makes Flash look like a loser, which counts, I think. He gets yelled at for the use of his powers. He goes out to blow off steam after getting yelled at. He gets talked shit to by some dickhead store clerk. He gets back at the person who talked shit to him by not chasing the criminal when, and this is the important part, he was so far away from them at that point and had no way of stopping him before that point. That criminal then goes on to kill Uncle Ben and escape. Peter learns of Uncle Ben's death. He tries to chase the guy who killed Uncle Ben and hunts him down. He ends up finding a supervillain first and gets distracted. He decides to save a kid and return him to his father. He learns that he should always help people when he can and figures out that this is a bit of a long one. If you could do good things for other people, you have a moral obligation to do those things. That's what's at stake here. Not choice, responsibility. Well, at least the last word is the same. Yeah, that's the arc. That's his origin story. Breaking it down piece by piece, Peter accidentally gets bit. This is important because the fact that it could have happened to anybody is something that torments Peter constantly. He uses his power for personal gain. He should be excited to finally get what he thinks he deserves. He acts selfishly, and the next part where he doesn't get rewarded is also important. It's that bitterness that fuels his next choices. It also teaches him that there isn't always a reward for doing stuff with your powers. He doesn't get that immediate gratification. He doesn't get that incentive to continue acting selfishly. But let's say that Peter getting shit-talked by this asshole still gives him that bitterness, which gets punished. It's important that his bitterness gets punished, that he gets punished for acting selfish. He acts on his anger and does the selfish thing of choosing to let a guy get away and gets immediately punished for it. But the guy is not that easy to stop for Peter in this movie. He's not in a small hallway where Peter could just stick his foot out and trip the guy. It's an open, empty street, with the guy being almost fully out of sight already. Peter didn't just let this guy get away. He couldn't stop him if he wanted to. Uncle Ben dying in this movie is not the consequence of Peter's action in any way, except maybe Peter running away, I guess. But he was angry, and Uncle Ben didn't have to go looking for it. In the normal story, Uncle Ben is either at home chilling with Aunt May when the guy who Peter lets escape breaks into their house, or in the Sam Raimi movies, Uncle Ben is trying to pick Peter up from the library and gets his car stolen and he gets shot. So Peter's out for revenge on a guy who killed his uncle, but not out of redemption for his mistakes. It's out of anger for losing his uncle. It's a different vibe. He doesn't even catch the guy and have to be confronted with the difficult choice of whether or not to take a life. He just moves on. It feels empty. He doesn't learn the lesson. The great power lesson comes from the realization that Peter has the power to kill this guy in Uncle Ben's name. But if he acts on it, he has to deal with the consequences of that guy having a family, or even just the knowledge that he fucking murdered someone.
The great power isn't just the power to help people, it's also the power to hurt them. The responsibility aspect comes from having to make the decision on which power to use and when to use it. The lesson that he learns in this movie is that saving people feels good. He is still being selfish. He just doesn't want to be guilty for letting a kid die. And then he doesn't want to be guilty for letting the lizard get away because he feels guilty for helping make the lizard. Anyways, it's fine. The movie isn't that bad. There's some cute scenes and moments, some weird shit, and the fact that he really could swing with his leg injured. Like he had, and the climax is that he swings with the injured leg anyways. Why are you pretending to struggle, dog? Just do what you need to do. Plus, the next movie is way worse. It also makes this movie worse in hindsight. So I'll say, as its own movie, The Amazing Spider-Man is about a 7 or 8 out of 10. But with the context of the other movie, The Amazing Spider-Man is at a 6. If you got this far in the video, this part's unscripted, I'm just going to say thank you so much for watching. It means a lot. I'm doing this out of pettiness, but I do want to say, subscribe, please. If you want to see more, I'm going to be making videos on the rest of the Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man 2 is next. I'm also working on a recap for the entirety of Smallville, starting with season 1. I can't do 162 hours of content in one video. I don't think YouTube will let me upload something that long. All right, subscribe. Bye.